Now, supply chain bottlenecks are something we've got very used to discussing on this programme for a variety of reasons, among them the pandemic, Brexit, the blockage earlier this year of the Suez Canal and ransomware attacks such as the one on the Colonial Oil Pipeline. But these issues are also creating business opportunities. Interos uses artificial intelligence to identify risks to shipments worldwide. It achieved unicorn status earlier this year when it was valued at $1 billion in a funding round. Well, Jennifer Bisceglie is the Chief Executive of Interos, and she joins me now from the United States. Jennifer, very good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me at this unsociable hour. I mean, you've worked in this field for a very long time. It was previously only heads of procurement that worried about the supply chain. Was it the pandemic that elevated it to the boardroom?
Absolutely. Right now, we're seeing an absolute trend where boards and the CEO of organizations are talking about this twice a month. So COVID really brought it home. I also want to bring up the point that the last interviewer mentioned. A lot of this is being played out in the court of public opinion. And so it's a true belief for Interos that the companies that are going to come out of this well and strong are those that invest early and a lot in their supply chain.
Now, you help businesses identify risks to their supply chain using artificial intelligence. What are the sort of things that you do?
So we ingest massive amounts of data. And I think what Interos does uniquely is we treat the supply chain as a very, very large business map. And we are all hyper-connected. And Ian, that's honestly what COVID brought home to the C-suite, is that we are all connected to every other business in the world. And so when anything happens, as you mentioned, a ransomware attack, a ship gets caught sideways in a canal, or there's just a slowdown of materials and manufacturing, there's a ripple effect to all of us. So what we do is we ingest massive amounts of data, we provide transparency through the supply chain, and then we monitor for these type of disruptions to allow our customers to preempt and hopefully pre-solve so they can continue to get goods to the shelves.
But it's not just physical disruption that you're analysing as well. Potentially it's reputational harm as well.
There's a lot around reputational harm. You saw that with what happened in Scotland and the sustainability goals that are coming out of this. There is more of a push back into the supply chain. It's no longer good enough just to have an agreement with the company that you know you're doing business with. It has to be pushed through the supply chain, and a lot of that is around brand and reputational harm.
Now, supply chains began to get a lot more complex probably about 15 years ago when countries like the United States started to outsource more of their manufacturing. I mean, obviously, the Trump administration had a go at bringing some of that work back onshore. Is the genie ever going to be put back in the bottle in that regard?
I think that we should all expect that what we're living through right now and the tightness that we are all feeling as we gear up for the holiday season is the new normal. And so there is no genie to put back into the bottle, to answer your question. This is how we need to operate. We have got to adopt and mandate transparency in our extended supply chain. We have to invest in technologies to provide that transparency and the ongoing continuous monitoring. No more, Ian. It used to be I could do a survey once a year and that was good enough. We've now proven over the last 18 to 24 months that it has to focus on technology and continuous monitoring.
Now, Jennifer, one of the really hot topics in supply chains right now is the shortage of chips around the world. It's acutely problematic for car makers in particular. How quickly do you think this situation is going to be resolved?
I don't think any of these situations are going to be resolved quickly. I think that, to your point, car makers alone are projecting to lose over 61 billion US dollars due to the shortage of chips. The lead time from manufacturing to the manufacturer has moved, it's doubled over the last year. It's moved from 3 to 6 months. So it's a serious concentration issue, and that's across the board and across industries. And so I think that between the need for more manufacturing, diversified manufacturing, because you're now seeing rolling blackouts in China where a lot of these materials are all coming from, that will continue to make the supply chain difficult. Companies are going to really try to make a hard run at improving productivity around manufacturing, reducing costs, investing in alternative shipment methods. Costs are going to go up to the end user because of that. We're going to be air freighting chips and supplies around the world. So there is no quick fix. Again, I think this is a solid 1.5 to 2 years to really see any sort of a smoothing out happen.
Goodness, I mean, that has all sorts of implications, doesn't it? I mean, what about geopolitics more broadly? I mean, clearly, while you're able to provide a lot of granularity in the data that you provide to clients, I mean, there are some potentially black swan events out there, all of them geopolitical, that really could cause all sorts of disruption.
Yeah, I'd offer to you that after the last year and a half of multiple examples of supply chain disruptions, there should not be any more black swans. There is technology and there are ways to get ahead of these problems. I think that, to your point, there are a lot of trade tariff concerns and bigger agreements that are going on that are both positive and negative, which is why transparency of the supply chain, at the end of the day, businesses cannot continue to feel the shocks that they have felt over the last 2 years. Business just cannot keep operating this way. The good news, Ian, is that we built, to your question a few minutes ago, we built our supply chains to be this short and this fragile when we started offshoring as a global economy back in the 90s. We have a real opportunity to forward invest in technology and relationships to provide that transparency in the supply chain as we all move to get out of this over the next year and a half to 2 years.
And what about your ambitions for the business? As I mentioned in the introduction, you've achieved unicorn status this year. I mean, are you looking potentially to stock market flotation at some point in the future?
As you can imagine, Ian, we are busy. And we are busy just staying humble, working hard, and building a very valuable business right at this point in time. The company is actually 17 years old. So we have been singularly focused on providing transparency and continuous monitoring of the supply chain for 17 years. I think with what's happened over the last year and a half, the fact that boards and the CEO of organizations globally now understand that this is brand and reputationally based, it's really our time to work hard and to really build a valuable business. And it's been a lot of fun.
I like that. So you've become an overnight success after 17 years. Jennifer,
Exactly.
Very good to talk to you. And thanks for joining me again at such an unsociable hour.